Hi guys, we're your hosts. I'm Liddy.
And I'm Hazal, and this is a space for the ambitious girlies chasing big dreams and building bold lives.
Today's topic is all about female friendships. And I feel like there is so much to unpack with this one.
So
low-key excited for it. Why can't it just be female friendships? Why has it got to be female friendships and all these questions and all these comments and all these opinions? Why can't we just exist?
Why can't it just be A plus B equals a beautiful friendship?
That's it. And then life goes on. There's all these drama llama that's on top of it.
Drama llama. That defines it all, to be honest.
For real.
But let's get into it.
So obviously there's this stereotype that female friendships are messy, dramatic, and don't last. And if you've had rough experiences like toxicity, secret competition, one-sided friendships, you can definitely start giving into that mantra. Heck, that was even a belief that I used to hold. For ambitious women especially, navigating growth and self-worth, friendships can either drain you or fuel you. But we have seen that good, healthy friendships can be cultivated, and that when you do capture that, it is so worth it. I thought we were gonna... So why do you think there is that narrative that female friendships don't last?
There's multiple different perspectives we can look at this question from. So if we look at it from a societal perspective, I feel like in general, I don't want to play the blame game, but in general, whether it be in movies, music, even in memes and stuff, they're always putting women against women.
Yeah, pitting them against each other.
Literally,
patriarchy.
There aren't, that many examples of healthy, loving, caring female relationships. Of course there are, but the opposite side is just, there's so many more examples of that. And I feel like when you're constantly exposed to, oh, women don't get along. Oh, you shouldn't trust women around your men. Once you get in a relationship, stay away from your female friendships because they're going to be jealous of you. Oh, if one female is doing well, the others must be jealous of them. When you keep hearing these things, it will inevitably seep into your unconscious thoughts as well.
I do think we also need to explore the other side of things.
I agree.
The socialized silence, the performative closeness, the lack of boundaries that can exist in some female friendships. And it begs the question, are we as women, obviously not generalizing different contexts and perspectives, I know, but are we as women kind of conditioned to put up with certain things that otherwise we wouldn't put up with if we were kind of, I don't want to say taught different, but if different external messages were kind of spread. And I guess what I'm trying to say is so many of us were not taught to have healthy friendships. I can say that from first-hand experience as kind of ethnic minority background, XYZ. It was more so about how to be a good daughter, how to be a good wife, how to be a good student if you're kind of lucky to come from that household. But it was never about how to be a good friend to someone. And a lot of time we think it's interchangeable, that if you were taught to be a good person, that's enough to sustain a friendship, but it's not. Friendship is also a type of relationship, and it is something that I do think you need to be taught, and there are skills that need to be learned there.
That's so true. It's never something that's high in the priority list, like how to be a good friend.
For real.
I guess you just assume from a young age, oh, you guys go play together, be friends. But once you become an adult or in your later teens and into adulthood, friendship is such an important part of just growing up. Friendships shape you so much, especially when you're in school. You spend more time with your friends than you do with some of your family members. So it's honestly really important to know, one, how to be a good friend, but also how to recognize a good friend as well, because some people, unfortunately, they don't have the best intentions, and from a young age it can be difficult to understand that or comprehend that when you're not even too sure what that looks like.
Yeah, the whole friendship shape you thing, when I tell you my friendships have shaped me so much, both the negative and positive experiences have all fed into who I am. That's what relationships are going to do. And I think that's why it's such a shame that, because those things aren't high on the priority list of raising the women in certain households, that we end up having to teach ourselves through external output and external narratives. And as we said earlier, what are the external narratives? Very, very negative, very, very problematic, even putting things in your head that you wouldn't think. I don't just go around walking and thinking oh, Hazal's going to steal my man. It's not something that'll come across your head, but you're being told it, and it's I never thought that before. What's going on? And I think it's just it's so bizarre and problematic, to be honest. But you know, this is not more so about debunking, oh, it's a bad thing that when you were younger, the priority was to teach you how to cook, to teach you how to dress, to teach you how to be feminine. Like that whole thing and where it stems from is a whole history lesson within itself. But it's more so about, because most of us weren't taught these things, how do you go about now navigating that in order to cultivate those healthy female friendships that we need and are worth fighting for?
I know both of us have had experiences in the past where one friend really hurt us, and therefore we were both put off friends for a long time, like separately in our younger years. And that seems quite a dramatic thing to do, but if all I know from about friendships is my experiences, and then one friend really hurts me, it makes sense to then just pull away from all friendships, because you think, oh, all friends are like this. But this is why learning about friendships is so important from a young age. Damn.
And I was like,
honestly, for example, with like a job, right? Or with like subjects at school, you can have one bad subject, but you know there's other ones. Or you can have a bad experience at work or a bad manager, for example, but then you know there's other managers. So why is it that some aspects of life we know there's other options and that's just one bad experience?
wow.
But with other things, we're like, this whole topic is bad.
Yeah, true. Like you had one bad experience, then it kind of ruins it for everyone else. I don't know why we're so ready to put on that lens for certain things. But I guess it's because I think it correlates with the amount of trust and vulnerability put towards something.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah, like I'm not gonna have so much trust and vulnerability with my job, with my manager. Like, please.
I was gonna say
get me out of here after 5 p.m. Whereas with like family, with relationships, with friendships, there's a level of like trust and vulnerability that I hope,
emotions,
right, that I hope you're putting out there. And then when it's thrown back in your face, you naturally just put up protective mechanisms to protect yourself from experiencing that level of pain again. So yeah,
very interesting.
I know, right?
I know.
Talking about vulnerability and trust and the importance of that in any relationship, I do feel like sometimes people want all the perks of friendship without having to navigate the difficult parts as well. Like they want the bestie selfies on holiday, or the, you know, friendship dates and the birthdays together, but they don't necessarily want the hard conversations, the extending grace to one another when someone is perhaps not showing up as, you know, the friend that you expected them to be. One thing that I do think a lot of us need to comprehend is that a healthy friendship that can withstand the different seasons of life can simply not exist without the difficult or hard elements of it as well. It's with any strong foundation. That's just how it is.
I love what you've just said about people not wanting to do the difficult work or the difficult parts of a friendship. And I think that's because in general we undermine friendships. I think you know, when it comes to a relationship, for like a romantic relationship, everyone goes into it knowing that, you know, that's a different person, I'm a different person, we're gonna have to, you know, compromise and put in a bit of work. But with friendships, we think they're just, you know, this common thing that everyone has, and we don't have to put any work into it. But friendships are not easy, especially close friendships are not easy. They require a lot of work. And some difficult conversations do need to be had. So, you know, in saying that, how do you know when a difficult conversation has to be had, and how do you go about navigating that?
This might sound a bit vague, but you just sense it. I feel like sometimes
tension.
Yeah, that's it, the tension. Things just feel a little off.
Yeah.
You know, they start moving a bit different. And you just sense that something isn't right. And I don't think this is just a dramatic issue that's occurred in your friendship, even if it means you've upset someone, or I don't know, your friend is sad and you don't know how to bring it up. The uncomfortable conversation can occur in different facets. But the point is, you can usually tell when someone's like not okay. And I would go ahead and even say that it's in the silence, and silence manifests differently, whether that's in coldness, in passive aggressiveness. And it's not to say like these are good things, but no one is perfect. Sometimes that's just how people are gonna come across when, once again, they're like unhappy with the situation. But you know, we see these things online, right? If you think that your friend only posts ugly pictures of you on Instagram, go talk to them about it. If you feel like your friends go out of the way to leave you out, have a conversation about it. These things, those are more like extreme examples, but I feel like a lot of the issues that occur or the misunderstandings that occur could be sorted out if people would just sit down and talk. Like, is there something I said that upset you? Can we talk about it? Or I didn't know this was a trigger point for you. Can we sort it out? Or, okay, you think that I'm leaving you out. Can you explain what's happened so that we can figure it out? It's very, very uncomfortable. But I think something that's more uncomfortable is continuing your friendship on a foundation of assumptions rather than an honest, genuine conversation. Don't let it fester or spiral. Just talk it out. The danger of silence is that you make up these stories that they spiral out of control and it gets you nowhere.
And I think, you know, just going off of what you've said, I love what you said, by the way. There's a few reasons why someone might be avoiding a difficult conversation. For example, firstly, they might think it's not that serious. Like, you might have got upset because I took your mascara, and I might think that's just not serious at all. Like, get over it. But for you, that mascara might mean everything to you, right? Yeah. And it might be really, really serious to you. And I think especially in female friendships, sometimes we can, you know, just both be silent and then expect things to get better. They won't get better. You'll move on from that eventually, but these things will build up, and then eventually you'll have a big argument and stop being friends. So when these small things do come up, take the courage to be like, hi, Liddy, or hi, Hazal. You know, I can tell you're a bit silent. Is there anything that I've done that's upset you? And then equally the person on the other side has to have the courage to say, you know what, this did upset me. And I think that's very healthy. You know, communication is one of the most important parts of every relationship, including friendships. Having those conversations, no matter how big or small, can really help in the longevity of the friendship.
For sure. And I think stepping away from those petty things that kind of occur in female friendships, even being vulnerable, you know, like, hey, I noticed you haven't been yourself for a few weeks. I want to be there for you. Can we talk about it? Is there anything I can do? Or can I just be a listening ear? Like, it takes courage to be that person. But if you're not willing to do that, or you're uncomfortable with that XYZ, you can't then expect your friendship to go to places when you haven't unlocked that door to permit it to get there. And I think that's the issue. A lot of us, we have these expectations of what we want our friendship to look like based on social media, based on TV, based on our own imagination, but we're not willing to do the hard work to get there.
Unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
You both need to want the friendship to get to that level.
And why is that unpopular?
Why is that
unpopular? That's like facts.
Yeah, I think we all have, you know, sort of different stages each of our friendships are at, and obviously you'll be closer with some friends and you'll be less close with some friends. And the reason why someone is silent or doesn't want to have a big conversation after a small misunderstanding might be because they don't want to get to that level of vulnerability with that friend. They might want to keep that friendship at not surface level, but they don't want to explore that friendship to a deeper, closer level. And sometimes, you know, the person on the other end just has to accept that as well, I think. It's difficult to force a close friendship because I don't think you can force a close friendship. You'll only end up hurting yourself because you'll be putting in more and more and more effort when the person on the other end just doesn't want that same level of friendship, that same level of closeness.
It'll end up being performative closeness, which is what a lot of female friendships have. They look really tight.
Oh my gosh, that's my bestie.
Right? But like when you just spend time with said people or you go into the nitty gritty of things, it's like, oh, this is scary. Like, wow, these are the foundations, very cracked.
I think every female should seek close female friends. I think they're really important, but not everyone can be your close female friend, right? So everyone will naturally pick the 1 or 2 or 3 friends they want to be close with. And if you're on the other end and you can tell that your female friend doesn't want to get to that level of closeness with you, that's okay. Like, there will be other female friendships that do want to explore that deeper, closer level, and put your effort into those people who will actually give back the effort you're putting in as well.
And I think don't take it personal. I think if on the other side of that friendship, the person is going out of their way to mislead you, I don't know, to mislead you, to make it seem like you guys are close when you're not really that close, all that messy stuff, then that's toxic. Get away from that. Unless they're doing it accidentally and you need to chat to them about that to reflect. But I think if it's something where they've kind of made it clear, maybe indirectly, if you need clarification, I think directly seek it rather than once again having assumptions. But if they've made it clear to you that, you know, the extent to which you want the friendship to develop is over here and you want it over here, it's up to you now to protect your heart. It's up to you now to move differently. And it doesn't mean be cold or whatever, but it might just mean limiting the amount of access they have to you, or the level of information you give them. Because sometimes you pour yourself into other people and you expect the same back, and when you don't get it, you're disappointed they're the bad guy. But did they ever make it clear to you or indicate to you that they wanted to go that deep and close? So I do think it's about protecting your heart as well, to avoid those one-sided friendships or those misunderstandings that occur so frequently in female friendship.
This might seem like a negative thing, like someone not wanting to be close with you as like a female friend, but I actually think it's a positive thing, because when we're in school, for example, our pool of friends that we have is very limited, right? You're all in the same school, in the same year group, in the same classes, and you just become friends out of convenience. You see each other every day, so naturally you're going to talk to each other and you're going to become friends. But when you become an adult and you're not forced to be in the same classes with people, for example, you get to actually pick your friends. You don't have that limited pool anymore. So if one person isn't giving you the energy you want, you can just naturally go find another female friendship that you can explore to that deeper, closer level.
Vulnerability does save relationships, even if it's uncomfortable. I think clarity over resentment any day. I definitely know from our conversations, there's been times where I've been so glad that you brought certain things up and we could just nip it in the bud rather than allowing it to fester. And I've really just had to sit down and reflect for myself that, you know, if this was to continue, we wouldn't be friends anymore. And I'm so happy we had that conversation and sorted it out as soon as we could, so that we can continue to kind of walk in, you know, the same direction, or walk in a direction that allows us to continue to support and love each other. And you touched on a point that I think was really good, and that is it takes two. And that's so true. Like, you both need to be willing to be honest, vulnerable to a certain extent, and be committed to the friendship, to want to make it work and to want to make it, you know, grow in closeness and in sustainability. This is about sustainable female friendships, not superficial female friendships. So if you want a sustainable, long-standing female friendship that is as close as you want it to be, you both need to be willing to put in that honesty, that vulnerability, and that work. If they love and respect you and are willing to honor the friendship that you've both built together, they should be willing to listen, hear you out, explain their part of the story, find a solution, compromise, and move on from the situation, as long as what you are kind of trying to address is reasonable. And I say this because I have seen things online where people are like, you know, she's not a true friend because of this, they're not a true friend because of that. And what they're complaining about is so unreasonable. It's so like, you know, this is not realistic. This is not considerate of your friend. It's borderline toxic.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, like I've definitely seen one. I've definitely witnessed situations where perhaps someone wanting to be friends with other people has caused issues in a given friendship. And I think bringing that up as a point of, I'm not happy you're doing this, let's fix this so that your friendship can move on, is problematic if what you're requesting from them is to end the other friendships. And that's toxicity, and it's really bad. But it is an example of like really petty things I have seen occur. So I do think, what you're saying has to be reasonable, but also the other person needs to be willing to listen and willing to work on a certain thing. So in saying that, how do you know when it's time to fight for a friendship or when it's time to let go?
Ooh, that's a really good question. And I think that's definitely something I used to struggle with a lot more in the past. I just struggle to let friends go. Once you've built that emotional connection, it's just like, oh, really?
Got to start again.
Really? But I realized that I need to let certain friends go when I noticed the things they're saying or the way they're acting, I wouldn't tolerate from someone else. And even though once you have that emotional connection, it can be difficult, you need to prioritize yourself and your values and your morals. Like, if you let this person continue to treat you that way or speak to you that way, guys, it's not going to get better. Like, they're not going to, once they've decided that this is how they want to treat you as a friend, it's not really going to get better. So you need to prioritize yourself in that moment and let them go. And when I say let that friendship go, I'm not saying after, you know, one example or one experience where they've upset you. Of course, in those scenarios, you can try to speak to them and you can try to move forward from that experience. But if it keeps happening again and again and again,
despite you kind of setting up those boundaries.
Exactly. If you set up boundaries and they keep knocking them down, essentially, that's the time you need to realize that this friendship isn't worth fighting for. Because when you become friends, you don't know what other people's boundaries are, right? Like, I didn't know what your boundaries were when I first started being your friends. When it comes to communication, actions, words, whatever it might be relating to, as you go through that friendship, you will learn each other's boundaries. You'll learn what's important to each other. And naturally, your actions and your words should adapt around that, right? But if you've shared your thoughts and feelings with someone and they said they're going to do better, but they're not doing better and they're essentially mocking you, at that point, that friendship is no longer worth fighting for. Now, on the other hand, when you have a close friend or you have a friendship you're building on and there's a lot of positives in that friendship. For example, you guys are adapting to each other as you learn more and more about each other. That's a friendship that's worth fighting for, I would say, when there's a lot of positive features of that friendship and both friends are trying their best to do better for each other. If you then have a small argument over something that's not very serious, that's not really a good enough reason to let go of a good friendship.
So I guess what you're trying to say is essentially that there needs to be a certain level of grace. Like, extending grace is important. Viewing something through the lens of grace is important. Like, is your friend having a bad day? Are they going through a crappy season in their lives? Have you maybe not expressed your boundaries to them? Therefore, they think that you're okay with XYZ when really you're not. I think there's a level of grace that is definitely required when it comes to friendship, female friendships in particular. There's this kind of stereotype online where it's like you would give the guy like 10 different chances, but when it comes to your female friend, the minute they do one thing wrong, like, you cut them off. And guys, I don't know the extent to which that is true. I know it's not true for myself, but maybe I've seen it with others that maybe that is the case, where we're less forgiving when it comes to other females. In female friendships, there are going to be different seasons where people have different capacities and may not be able to show up to the extent to which you require them to. And I guess that you need to ask yourself the question, like, is this just a rough patch in our friendship, or is this a pattern that keeps occurring? And is the so-called thing you're getting offended at, is it reasonable? I'm so sorry, I hate to be the devil's advocate, but sometimes we're not always, just because you're angry doesn't mean you're in the right. And that's why I think a conversation is important. That's why I think you guys need to talk things through and figure out what's going on, see if you can kind of get through that rough patch, because at the end of the day, your friends aren't mind readers. And I do think a lot of the time, some females, we do be thinking everyone reads our mind. Like, people should just know to do certain things, and that's just not how it works. Your friends aren't mind readers. Your family aren't mind readers. Your relationships, people aren't mind readers. You do need to use that mouth of yours to speak and express, you know, this has made me upset, don't do it again. These are my boundaries, don't do it again. And I say this because I know I used to really struggle with extending grace to my female friendships. I had like one negative experience where I was like, all female friendships are bad. And so the minute like someone would do something wrong, I'd be like, cut off, you're out of my life, which is not good. And I'm so happy I've grown from it, because otherwise I would have sabotaged a lot of the healthy female friendships I have today that have really poured into me, have really showed up for me, have really just allowed me to be fully known and fully loved. But I do think in saying that, extending grace does not equal tolerating disrespect. Like I said, is it a rough patch or is it a pattern? Is it a bad day or is it their character? You need to discern that and figure that out for yourself. Fighting the good fight is good, but if they are not willing to change or work with you, there's a certain point where it becomes toxicity. And for your own good and for your own protection of your heart and your peace and well-being, you kind of just need to step back a bit.
Think about what advice you would give someone else in your situation and see if that aligns with the advice or the actions you're doing yourself.
Friendship red flags are definitely something that we need to go into in a dedicated episode, because we have a lot to say about that.
Unfortunately.
Kind of what we've had to deal with.
Unfortunately.
But I think kind of baseline knowledge for just where to start. If they don't wish wellness upon you, they embarrass you, they humiliate you, they bully you, they disrespect you, they just don't make you feel good about yourself and go out of their way to ensure you are constantly feeling those negative feelings, that's a sign that for your sake, this one is not a fight worth fighting for. Is it a fight worth fighting for?
It's not
something worth fighting for. It's not worth fighting for.
I always say, you know, friendships should, just like any other relationship, they should add to you, not take away from you, whether it be mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, friendships shouldn't be draining. And we know that friendships can be very, very draining when it's not the right friend, or they're just not treating you right. And honestly, you owe it to yourself to let that person go and prioritize your own happiness, because you can only be selfless for so long.
And as ambitious women as well, we're not just looking for, crumbs in friendships. We want those healthy, cultivating friendships that build you up, pour into you. You can all continue to evolve together, even though your paths may be different. It's about deciding what type of friendship you want, the fact that you are worthy of a good, healthy friendship, and then going out of your way to set those boundaries for yourself. And one thing I do want to caveat is that not everyone is your forever person. Some people come into your life to teach you something about yourself or about life for a certain period of time. They aren't meant to be there in the long run. And sometimes it is painful and difficult, but it is okay. Everything happens for a reason.
How do you know a friend is a seasonal friend?
When their time is up. like you can't, I don't think you can decide beforehand that someone's a seasonal friend. I feel like sometimes you think someone's only there for 4 weeks and then they surprise you and you're friends for 4 years. Other times you think someone's going to be at your bloody wedding as your maid of honor, but one girl's trip holiday ruins everything. Do you get what I mean? I personally, I'm not a believer that you can dictate in advance how long you're going to be friends with someone.
So if someone's listening and thinking, I don't even know what a good friendship looks like anymore, what advice would you give them to help build friendships that last?
I think if you're aspiring for healthy friendships that pour into you and that you can cultivate and it withstands the different seasons of life, one of the things that is most important to us, I think, is friendships with effort. You need to understand that a friendship is a relationship. It's just a platonic one. You deserve to have friendships that consist of effort, respect, consistency, presence, communication. Even though, of course, presence can look different. Not everyone is within your proximity. But yeah, just start understanding that it's a relationship that requires effort, I think is important. Because when you understand that it's a relationship and that it requires effort, you understand that you are two different people coming together in this friendship and you ought to learn about each other and continue to grow together as well. We are still learning a lot about each other today. Like, okay, if I say that joke, Hazal won't laugh. Or, if I do this, Hazal, will laugh, for example. And just about understanding each other, honoring that. And because I care about you, I won't go out of my way to overstep your boundaries. And that's because we love each other and we respect each other. So just that need for it to be a healthy relationship and the effort to make it one must come from both sides.
And just to add on to that, you also need to understand that, the friendship you built with that person at the age of 18 will look different with that same person at the age of 30. As you go through different life stages, first of all, people change just as individuals, but your friendship will change and evolve as well. So even in us, for example, from university to then graduating and starting our adult jobs, there's been a lot we've had to learn and pivot and understand about each other to continue being that same level of good friends. So you need to understand that it starts off with effort, but it continues with effort as well.
Wow, I really love that point. And I guess it even links to what I wanted to touch on next, which is the fact that clear expectations prevents future disappointment. I feel like we've had some different conversations where, I've literally had to be like, okay, now that I'm this age and now that I'm in this season, this will no longer work for me, or can you please meet me here? And it hasn't been the most comfortable. It hasn't been the most fun, but it's been so necessary.
Honestly, I think it's so much better in the long run to sit down and have that conversation before any disagreements or arguments than to have it in a heightened moment when you're both upset or angry, and you're much more less likely to come out with positive actionable points, right? But like you've said, once you get to that mature stage in your friendship where you're able to recognize that in different life stages you're going to need different things from your friendships.
I know something I do to help me with this, and I'm gonna say with chest with no shame, because I think more people should actually be doing this, but I personally categorize my friendships, and this just allows me to be informed on where people stand in my life and how much access they have to me. I think it's useful for both me and the other party, so that there isn't any scope for one-sided friendships or someone feeling like they've been treated unfairly. It protects me, it protects them, and there's a mutual understanding of expectations. I personally hate grey areas. I think it leads to unnecessary faff. So I'd rather just everyone knows where they stand in my life, whether you're my best friend, my close friend, my church friend, someone who's just in my network, someone who's in my sphere of influence, based on kind of where you are mentally. Don't worry, guys, I don't like draw it out on a bloody whiteboard. Like, just mentally, I just know where everyone is. It means that I then know how I should behave. It means I can then act accordingly to ensure that I'm not putting myself in a situation where, you know, I will be hurt or you will be hurt as well.
Fair enough. I mean, I understand why you might do that, but I'm on the complete other end of the spectrum. I don't really categorize my friendships. I haven't felt the need to do so in the past. So I guess both works, and it's based on what works best for you, I guess. I feel like without categorizing my friendships, I can, on an individual basis, know what my expectations are from each friend. But I do understand that it is a bit more of a grey area, but to me that doesn't make me uncomfortable.
Wow. And I love the fact that you mentioned that, because it goes to show that you need to know yourself. You need to know what you need. Because then you can kind of set boundaries based on what you're comfortable with or uncomfortable with. And I love the fact that we can kind of show these different perspectives so that our listeners can take what inspiration they need from it to ensure that they are developing those healthy female friendships that are just so needed. I'd highly encourage it. Highly recommend it.
And the final thing I'd say you need to look out for when looking for good friendships is to be the friend that you're expecting other people to be for you, whether it be being present, whether it be celebrating that friend, whether it be just loving and caring and spending quality time together. You can't expect a close friend to yourself when you can't provide that to someone else as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. As ambitious women who kind of want fullness in all areas of life, you deserve to be loved, you deserve to be celebrated, you deserve to have people that you can just giggle with and make silly memories with, but you also need to be willing to show up and be that person. And sometimes, you know, we're not always held accountable in that way. So here's me holding you guys accountable. Be that friend that you are looking for. It's not fair and it's not realistic for you to seek out a certain type of person for yourself when you're not willing to be that person to other people.
Yes, you're not like going shopping for friends.
Yeah,
it's not like that. You need to. It's a two-way street. Like we said earlier on in the episode, it takes two to tango, and you both need to be willing to put in the effort. Again, effort to be that person for each other.
Yeah, people just need to understand that the word friend carries more weight than we think, and the level of weight and honor that you attach to it is the level of weight and honor that you will receive when you need it most. One thing I am definitely like proud of us about is not just how much we've matured and developed in friendships, boundaries, expectations, respect and love for one another, but the fact that we also make space for uncomfortable conversations, for growth, for change, for trust, for vulnerability. I personally don't see how we could have been friends for so long to this extent and deepness without those elements. I do think it's so necessary if you are someone who is looking for these hero friendships that last and that are healthy and sustainable.
Yeah. And guys, it hasn't been a walk in the park. Like Lily said, there has been lots of difficult conversations, and obviously there's been like arguments and stuff that we've had to naturally learn from and move on from. But like we said earlier on, we've both recognized that this is a friendship that we want to work on, we want to improve, and we want to be better friends for each other. And I think, we've come out the other end smashing it. What is that?
If there was one takeaway that you could tell the ambitious girlies in regards to this podcast episode, what would it be?
Dear ambitious girlies, you are worthy of having loving, caring female friendships that cheer you on and join you on this journey of life. So don't feel like you ever need to settle for less and stick around fake people who don't even like you just for the sake of having a friend.
Period. You said you don't even like you. Dear ambitious girlies, don't harden your heart just because you've been hurt. You will find your people. Just don't give up on connection. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode.
Make sure you guys share this episode with all your female friendships and even your female family members, your sisters, your parents, your aunties. Share it with everyone. Make sure you guys follow us on social media at Lily and Hazal on all the different social media a lot of platforms. And we'll see you in a new episode next time. Bye.